Yeah, I invited Rachel because Rachel is also one of my favorite people. And for the first pilot episode of Awakening Dreams by Raw, she's the first person that I wanted to bring onto the show. Because what is this podcast about? It is about ordinary people searching and living out their authentic lives true to their purposes. And I think Rachel is one of these people who's so passionate, so loving, so authentic. I am your host, Elche, champion for authentic connection with a vision of eliminating the loneliness epidemic. Every person deserves to be seen and heard. And I would like to welcome Rachel, mom coach, who will be sharing her journey of breaking the cycle of self-doubt as a mother of three and is creating a joy-filled life. So welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Oh my God, it's so exciting. So exciting to do this with you. So
Okay, so Rachel, I want to know, I want my audience to know more about you. So,
mhm.
so tell me more about you. How would you describe yourself?
Whew. How would I describe myself? I think I think that I'm a really curious and interested person. I think since a kid, I've always just had an intense curiosity about different things, whatever it would be. And I'm like a really big nature lover. Since a kid, since I was little, and because I'm from the UK, so I was born in the UK, and I've lived in Singapore for about 25 years. And really, as a kid, I think I spent a lot of my time wandering around in the forest or in the woods near my house by myself, just literally being by myself. And I'm just the kind of person who's really happy by myself. And that can just be sitting in nature, doing anything, just being really. So how would I describe myself? I think sometimes I can be quite intense.
Mm.
But I think I'm really expressive, and I really just have this tendency to want to help people. I really love understanding what's going on with people. I like to understand their patterns, and I just have this interest in connections, and I'm always looking for these different connections, whether they be stories or whether it be just trying to find out more. I'm so curious. I have this childlike curiosity for things, so I'm always asking questions. So yeah.
I like that. I like when you mentioned about childlike curiosity because you describe yourself as curious child, right? And then being in the nature, wondering about things is so. I think this quality was there since young, and then you brought it all the way to today. Yeah, keeping the childlike
Yeah.
curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, it took me time to remember again, going through, adolescence and going through your young life. I've come to the point now where I've really embraced it more. So yeah, I pay attention to it now. I allow it to come out. I allow it to be there rather than try to resist, which I think I did for quite a long time, really. Yeah.
Hmm. Why do you think that? Yeah, you mentioned that you kind of forgotten about that, and then
Yeah.
you went through a journey to search, and then now being able to embrace this. Tell me more about that.
I think, to be honest, it really started with the birth of my first son.
Hmm.
Um, Motherhood is, everyone tries to get ready for it and be prepped and think that, when I'm ready, I'll have a child and everything. But honestly, I think there's no real way to be ready for motherhood itself until you become a mom, because you throw every expectation out the window, and it teaches you to really just embrace the journey. You resist it in the beginning because there's so much change, but as you get into motherhood, and if you really truly allow yourself to be that open, curious child as a mother, you actually enjoy the journey much more. So I think it really, really started, and I didn't realize it started then. I only looked back and I realized that it was through the birth of my first child, Diego, that I really embraced the curiosity, to release control. Like to think that we're always in control of everything. I know I used to think I needed to do things a certain way and it had to be perfect. But honestly, when you release control, and I released control at some point, which I was like, I can't keep trying to make everything happen exactly the way I want to. And when I released that and just enjoyed the journey and the process, I think that's when it first really started for me. Yeah.
Oh. I'm curious about the releasing control. So how long have you been when it comes to wanting to control versus to the point where you think that, okay, I should, or I want to release control?
I think it came up to a point where I tried to do everything as a mother and as a person. I tried to be everything. Like when I say try to be everything, I try to be everything for everyone, not for me. And when you are in that situation where you are trying to please everyone, tiptoe around everyone, make everyone happy, and try to be the balance or the perfection or the idea of perfection for everyone, then that's where the tension comes in and the difficulty starts to weigh on you because you're doing everything for everybody else. So that's where it really started, I think. And there was a point in time where I was like, I cannot do everything for everyone, plus this child, plus myself, plus the family, plus, entertaining or doing everything for everyone and trying to be something for everyone and not being something for myself. So there was a point where I had just this, it clicked. And I was just like, I need to ask for help for me, and for the betterment of everybody, for my child, for my family. I can't go on thinking that I'm, everyone says super mother, for example. Like I can't go on being superwoman and lift the entire world. I can't. But also that's also what was in my head. So releasing control in my head, I think that was the first point where I released control, although I didn't realize it. And I started to take charge of who I was and what I wanted. Okay. So there was a really big difference. Yeah.
Okay.
Lingo.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we talked about the motherhood. Maybe you can share a little bit. You mentioned that you started your self-awareness journey, and how does it then now lead to the coaching, and how did it then become, like you mentioned, the realization of your purpose?
Yeah. So again, it started when I first had my first child, and at that point I joined Apple. I started working with Apple. So I'm going to give you a short version of my story, as short as I can. And so when I joined Apple, I got to know some fantastic people who really helped me in my motherhood journey, especially this really great friend of mine called Amy Nash. I actually wrote a post about her as well. She was the one that really gave me the support that I needed, the unconditional, loving support that I think, not that I never had in my life, but that as a friend, coming from the point of view of a friend, she did so much for me and never asked anything. And I don't think I'd found that real true friendship that had given me that, and that I really wanted to give back in that sense. So during that period, I actually came across, I think it was through her as well, across this thing called The Secret. And that opened my mind. That was the first step to opening my mind and saying that, hey, I can have more. There is more. It is the beginning of the journey of understanding that abundance, I can have abundance, and there is abundance available for everyone. And for me, although again, in the early parts of my journey, I didn't realize all this, but it was the beginning for me to really come to step onto that path and realize that, hey, I'm on my path already, and not step onto, I'm already on my path, and just be more present. So after I finished working in Apple, I started to have the awareness of, hey, I want something for myself. What is it that I want for myself? And I started to become more aware of my intuition of like, now's the time to move on, or now's the time to go forward. And I came to a point where I was like, I need to go back into the creative realm. I need something that fulfills me and not just as a job. And so again, I took the leap and I left Apple, despite many people saying, oh my gosh, why would you leave Apple? You know, it's such a great company. I just knew that it was the end of my journey at that point there. And I had to start on something internal and more creative, being a creative person and being a very, what's the word? Hands-on and physical person. So I joined Charlotte Puxley, which was a florist. And I started this intense journey of learning from bottom up and doing things, because I really love physical. I'm a very physical person. So doing the physical work instead of sitting down at a desk really, really gave me a lot of energy and power. And I'd be exhausted at the end of the day, but I'd feel amazing. And one of the great things I learned from that, it's so funny now I think back on it. When I was learning to make the flowers, and I really love flowers, I love everything to do with nature, so it really works for me. When I was dealing with the flowers, we'd have to make vases, massive vases. And my mentor at that time, Charlotte Puxley, she would say, do them and then stand back and look at it. So don't have your head in the flowers, because when you're doing them, you're very much in the flowers. So you do it, you put your head in, and then you'd be close. And she always tell me, step back and look at what you've done. Turn the vase and have a look. And this perspective always stayed with me, to do something, because I would be so intensely trying to learn something that the learning curve was so huge. I'd stick my head in the flowers and I couldn't see the creation of what I'd done. And I always took that perspective away, to step back and look at something I've done. Take a moment to breathe, step back, and look at what I've done.
So before we go to continue the after your florist journey, just take a pause here, and I'm very curious about when you mentioned that you took the leap and left Apple, which is such a great company, and went on to something totally different, which is being a florist, being hands-on. And you mentioned about listening more to your intuition.
Yes.
So can you tell me, what is that? How do you know it's time? Like, where do you feel in your body, or what is those signals?
Yes, absolutely. That makes that was something that was very particular. And again, as I gone in through my journey, I started to recognize that. I've recognized it. It is this intense, I would almost say, I'd like to say implosion, but I'd feel this intense pressure coming into me, because there's a decision I want to make for myself, but I resist it. I feel a resistance to myself. And so it comes as this pressure on my shoulders. I feel everything pressuring inwards, especially in my throat, in my head and my neck. And I start to question. I have this constant question of, why am I still here? Why am I still doing this? And, you know, there's these intense moments where I'm like, I love what I'm doing, but I really want to move on. I really want to move on. But I have so much fear of the uncertainty. I had so much fear of the uncertainty. And again, this being early in my journey, I didn't recognize what that was. That pressure and that intensity was saying, hey, listen to yourself. This is what you want. But I resisted it. Mainly I resisted it because I was not going, I was listening to what other people were saying. I was not listening to what I really wanted, and just going, hey, you can do this. There's no problem in making the leap. It might be scary, but it's what you want. So no matter whether it was right or wrong, whether it was the right or wrong decision, if I took that leap, I would have, and I did, obviously. I felt that intense like pressure or maybe decompression when I actually did it. And I was like, oh my God, I did it. And when I actually took the step, it was never as difficult as what it seemed like in my head. You know, so yeah, it was an intuition. Now I recognize it as intuition that I resisted.
Yeah, so that means intuition, and when it comes to the decision, it's not so much of right or wrong. I mean, I'm sure there are people who, when they make decisions, they do, really analyze what's right, what's wrong. But then there's this other piece, which is that wisdom, tapping into your body, tapping into really apart from closing the noise of what other people are telling you, like what's right, what's wrong, but listening in on what I really want. And there's fear, actually. There's fear. But fear, again, they are just voices, right? On around the head. But then the intuition. And you mentioned that once you tap onto it, and when you make that decision, it's actually not that scary as it is. So the fear was the one that was actually trying to confuse us, or confuse you. And then when you did the leap, you mentioned about being in your creative realm. You felt the energy and the power. Tell me about that.
Yes. I'm going to put in one word that came out of what you said to me. That was the key to making the leap, which is actually acceptance. So acknowledging and accepting that's what I wanted. And that's where the key is to opening it and just saying, hey, I know this is scary. I know this is, everyone's telling you otherwise, but it's what I wanted. And when I said, or maybe when I actually did it and I couldn't step back from it, then the acceptance and the acknowledgement came in, and I went, oh my God, I can do this. It's not as difficult and scary as I thought it was in my head, as heavy as it was in my head. When I stepped out the door, when I gave that resignation letter, I was like, I did it. And this is what I wanted. I did something for myself. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know how it's going to go on. But I made the decision for myself, and that's all that mattered. That's where it changed for me. Yeah. Going back into the creative part of it, it gave me so much energy and power. And even though I had my second child, I worked from probably 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. physically, and I was doing a lot. I was delivering, I was doing physical work, extremely physical work. But I would come at the end of the day and I would just be physically and mentally, what's the word? Not done. I was physically and mentally not just exhausted, like happy. I can't, content. Like I had used every part of my brain and my body at the same time. And again, being a physical and a physical person and someone who also thinks a lot, it what's the word? It fulfilled every box for me.
Wow. And not forgetting this is in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm sure there were, like when you mentioned the fear, uncertainties, or even like people who are concerned about you asking, hey, why are you doing the creative things?
Yeah.
That may not earn you as much compared to being Apple, big company.
Yeah. I got that all the time. I got that a lot, and there was often fear inside of me that was like tell them that, yeah, I'm a florist, because I knew I would get judged. I was like, in my head, again, I feel still it's more in my head. Yes, there were people judging me, but I judged myself more than anything. But I was like, only when I came across these people, I didn't judge myself on a daily basis. I loved what I did, so I had no judgment for that. It's only when I came into certain settings where I knew that people would think, oh, why would you leave Apple for that? And I stopped, after a while, I stopped even trying to answer their questions. because I didn't need it. It was important to me. I already knew what I did. I loved what I did. And that was all, really.
Okay. So it's like, I was thinking, oh, probably, you know, all the judgments and everything, it's troubling you, but it's no longer troubling you. Because you feel that you are so true to what you are, who you are, that you no longer need to answer to anyone else. You just feel, what do you feel? At ease, or you feel, what's that?
No thoughts. I
No
had no
thoughts.
thoughts. I was not thinking about anyone else. I never thought like I had to answer to anyone. And I just did my work, and I was happy because I was so fulfilled.
Yes. So fulfill, you don't feel like you need to justify to someone else.
I didn't have to justify. I loved what I did. I brought so much joy to people, and you know, I think when people see that and feel that, they don't really have to question. They feel it.
That's very, very interesting, because you also did mention that at the end of the day, even though you were physically tired, when you went back home, you were still your best self. You were there for everyone.
Yeah, I was present.
You being present, you brought joy to people, and people could feel it.
Yeah,
and you use your being, who you are, to influence others to accept your decision.
Absolutely. There was no thoughts. I was never thinking about, oh, I'm not making enough money, or I'm you know, what are people going to think of me? And only happened when I was in the situation, not when I was doing the job or anything else. When I came into the situation where people would say, so what do you do? I'm like, I'm a florist. Of course I got judgment. I could see it sometimes in their face, but at the end of the day, I knew what I did. And when I was doing it, and when I was in those situations, I just didn't feel like I had to worry so much about explaining myself to people. When you're in that place of self-certainty and just happiness and enjoyment, joy, really, you don't feel the need to explain yourself.
Awesome. I want to move on to your big move to Bali.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.